Today, we're going to learn how to make changes to the TeXShop editor to accommodate our particular needs effectively and activate the X𝖿LATEXmk script. Before proceeding, please ensure that you are logged in as an administrator and that you know the password for that account. When writing computer code, it is usually a good idea to configure the editor to display the code, which is plain text, using a monospaced font. The reason is that code readability follows different criteria from the everyday text in a magazine article or book. Most of the time, it helps to be able to line things up vertically in columns on a character-by-character basis. This is not easily done with the sort of proportional fonts we otherwise find more pleasing. So the first thing we need to do is to find a suitable monospaced font. We basically have two choices. First, find an existing one on our computer system, or second, locate an external source of monospaced fonts. The first choice is of course the simplest, path of least resistance approach. The question is whether or not you can find something you are happy with, a completely subjective decision. Let's check it out. First of all, move your mouse pointer to the spotlight icon, which by default is in the top right corner of your screen, and click on it. A search window will open into which you should type Font Book. A list should come up with Font Book highlight, so either hit Return again or double-click the highlight area to invoke the application. In the left-hand column, you should see a gear icon followed by Fixed Width, which is just another way of saying monospace. Click on that. This brings up a list of the monospaced font families or typefaces on your system. By clicking on the various typeface headings in the next column, you can expose the members of a particular family. Clicking on any given member will bring up a font sample on the right. Browse through these and see whether you can find anything you like. Don't worry about making a wrong choice. If it turns out that the font is not ideal, you can always change it later without having any effect on your work. Remember, we're dealing with plain text. Appearance is without consequences. Just make sure that your choice is designated the regular version of that font, since other choices, bold, italic, etc., are typically less readable for this purpose. If you found a suitable choice, record it somehow for later reference. In this case, you may choose to skip the next section and go straight to Configuring-TeXShop Part 1 below, or if you're curious to hear my potential recommendation, plow ahead. Locating fonts on the internet is simply a matter of performing a search, so results are likely to vary depending upon your history. However, regardless of results, you should realize that there are two types of font packages available out there. Free, that is open source and/or free to use, and commercial fonts, that is fonts you have to pay money for. Theoretically, you'd expect commercial fonts to be of higher quality but that's not necessarily true. And in any case, you can often find something suitable without going that route. A quick search for free monospaced font brings up all kinds of choices which we can browse at our leisure. I'll just poke around a bit and see what comes up. Ah, Code New Roman sounds like it targets our needs. What's that like? Well, it's okay, I guess, though it doesn't totally turn my crank. I'll leave the searching and choosing to you and just make a choice so that we can move on to the next step. This font squirrel site has a nice one called Inconsolata. It's a free variant of a font which ships with Windows systems by name of Consolas, which I really like. Let me find that one. Here we are. OTF stands for Open Type Font, one of the more sophisticated modern font technologies, so this is a good sign. Click that and it will download to your default download location. Navigate to wherever that is and open the folder. You'll see two things: the font itself with OTF extension, the 3 characters after the period are called extension, and a license file. You're welcome to read that if you like. Let me just note here that SIL, formerly Summer Institute of Linguistics, puts all kinds of high-quality free fonts out there, so in future you might want to visit their site at www.sil.org and browse around. Installation is as simple as double-clicking on the font file name, which will bring up Fontbook, and then choosing Install Font, after which the new font will be available for use throughout the system. For now, remember the name of the font as you'll need it for the next step. There are 2 aspects to the TeXShop configuration: internal and external. If you want to do this as quickly as possible, make the external changes first, then the internal, as this will require fewer steps. I'm going to do it the other way around, however, so that I can show you what happens when you make the external changes. First, you want to launch TeXShop. I'll assume that you know how to do that, so I won't go into detail. I'll just point out that since I use it a lot, I have dragged it to my dock. You may or may not want to do the same. Next, under the TeXShop drop-down menu, find and click Preferences. This will, not surprisingly, bring up the Preferences dialog, which is divided into several tabs. We'll go through the relevant ones one by one. By default, you're in the Source tab, which is fine since we want to make some changes there. The first thing to do is to click Set right under Document Font. Probably there will be some sample text in here, and if not, you can enter some of your own. This shows you what a given font will look like in use. You'll also get a font dialog box. In the font dialog box, make sure that Fixed Width is clicked, as before, to reveal your monospaced font choices. You should see the font you chose in the list, whether it was pre-installed or whether it was one you downloaded and installed yourself. Click on it in the Family column, and then choose a typeface in the next column. In this particular case, I only have medium, but in some cases there will be several choices. Where possible, choose regular. The typeface sample should change to reflect your choice. The last thing you can do is choose the font size. I have problems in one eye which make reading awkward, so I have set mine to 18. But you should feel free to pick whatever size you like. Remember, you can always change this later. When you're happy, click OK to close the text sample dialog box. Just be aware that the change is not implemented until you click OK once more at the bottom of the screen to close the Preferences pane. But don't do that just yet. You have several choices of dialog box for searching and replacing. If you're happy with what you have, admittedly, so far you probably don't know that, leave the default. As you can see, I have changed mine to OgreKit Find Panel. This allows for a powerful search and replace feature through so-called regular expressions. Briefly, they allow you to search for sophisticated patterns in addition to the usual text searches, a real bonus for the serious programmer, and, I would argue, for the sophisticated typesetter or word processor as well. You can turn this on if you like or not. It adds functionality which you can choose to use or not, and it removes nothing. The encoding specifies how data is stored in files. If you open the drop-down menu, you'll see the many historical choices I mentioned in an earlier class, which were once necessary during the ASCII days to do things other than English. You don't want any of those. What you want is one of the Unicode options, so choose Unicode UTF-8. Without going into too much detail, this means that Unicode characters are stored as sequences of 8-bit characters, i.e. in byte format. UTF-16 was useful when it was thought that all conceivable characters would fit into 16 bits, but you already know that this is no longer true. This choice will probably work, but it's not really the standard, so avoid it. There are a few other things you can change in this tab, but they're really not terribly important unless you're an experienced user who can make an informed choice, so I recommend forgetting about them for now. While not strictly speaking necessary, it may avoid confusion later if your system and mine are set up the same way where the editor behavior is concerned. So please check or uncheck the various boxes as I have, and duplicate the style choices in the lower right-hand area. You can forget about the Preview tab for now, so let's just skip it. The only thing to do in the Console tab, really, is to set the console font to the same monospaced font you chose earlier. If you don't, the world won't come to an end. There are several changes to made in the Typesetting tab, but it's premature, so we'll return to this one later. The Engine tab governs which commands are executed when you try to run the original TeX system or a later LaTeX superset. If your system is working fine now, leave these alone. If not, talk to me and we'll work on this together. The only thing of concern to us here is the so-called BibTeX engine. This engine, a software kernel which powers the application, in this case TeXShop, so to speak, is invoked when we want to typeset bibliography. By default, this is a module called BibTeX, designed in the ASCII, or put another way, olden days. While there are some people out there who have an investment in this, we are not among them, since we're children of the Unicode era. So we want to change this. In the box, enter Bieber, B-I-B-E-R, exactly like that, all lowercase, and without making any mistakes. Double check that you've done it right. Bieber is the rather more sophisticated Unicode-based model which we will be using down the road. You can forget about the other tabs for now. Again, they are of more interest for experienced folk, or in the case of the Themes tab, for persons who like to change the colors of things for no good reason, just because they can. You know the type, always texting with emojis and things like that. We're not like that, right? When you're happy with all your choices and double-checked as necessary, click OK at the bottom of the pane to close the preferences. Some changes are immediate, while some only take effect when you restart TeXShop. Before we leave TeXShop to make the external changes, let's check out the Typesetting drop-down box. In your window, this is just to the right of the Typeset button. Click the arrows, and you will see a list of typesetting engines, beginning with PlainTeX, LaTeX, and a bunch of other things. By choosing one of these, you invoke that particular engine for processing on your file. For now, notice the one which is conspicuously absent, namely XείμLATEXmk, XŁLATEXmk. Right. Let's close TeXShop for now. As noted earlier, there is something we'd like to change in TeXShop's behavior which requires making some changes elsewhere. This will require returning to the days of the command line before anyone had such totally unnecessary things as graphical user interfaces. On a Mac, this is done by opening a so-called terminal window. Click on the spotlight icon once again and type terminal. And when terminal shows up, either press return or double-click on the highlight option. A window will open up similar to this one with some information and a prompt. That is, some text, in this case terminated with a $sign, inviting you to issue commands there. So, let's do that. First, type cd space tilde, top left of your keyboard, slash library slash TeXShop slash engines. Make sure you've used the forward or regular slash, not the one we talked about when discussing TeX. Then press the return key. You've just issued your first terminal command. And you're officially a geek just like the ones you see on all those TV shows. But what did this mean? The first word in the line is the command, in this case cd, which stands for change directory. A directory is simply the original pre-graphics term for folder. As there was nothing to see back then, people thought in terms of telephone directories rather than in terms of folders. The second component tells the computer which directory to switch to. By default, the terminal window opens in your home directory or folder, which it turns out is where we want to start navigating the file system. How convenient. Let's discuss this second component. There are three possibilities. First, the string begins with a forward-facing slash. This means, never mind where I am now, start at the root of the file system and proceed from there. The file system is organized like a kind of inverted tree. It starts at the top, or root, and branches down. Second, the string may begin with an alphabetical character. This means, look for the thing I want right here, wherever here is. And lastly, the string might begin with a so-called tilde, as it does here. This means, never mind where I am now, go to my home directory and proceed from there. If you're clever, you are clever, aren't you? Of course you are. You'll be asking, but you said that we start in the home directory, and you've given us a command which means start from the home directory. Isn't that redundant? Well, yes, you would be right. But I did it this way for two reasons. First, this command gets you to the right place when you've been fooling around and are somewhere else. And B, I get to teach you all of the options. So now we can move on. Following this, we have a sequence of slashes and other strings. Every slash means, given where we are now, look for the next item, which is either a directory, that is a location, or a file, a thing. Anytime it's a directory, we can keep on going and look for things inside it, and when it's a file, we're done. The command then applies to that particular item. In this case, we are navigating towards a location in search of something. Maybe we don't know yet what. Okay, so I know, but it's for you to find out. Anyway, in English, our string altogether means start with the home directory, then look for the library subfolder, then inside it look for the TeXShop folder, then inside it look for the engines folder, and stay there. If you check the prompt after you've executed the command, you'll see that it has changed to reflect our new location. It now says engines in it. Now let's see what's here. To do that, type ls and press return. This will bring up a listing of what is here, whether files or more directories. And lo and behold, you'll see a bunch of engines here which match the ones you had in your drop-down box. You'll also see a directory called inactive. Great, let's go there. The command for this, you guessed it, is cd space inactive. In other words, starting where I am now, open the inactive directory and stay there. Do this and you'll see the prompt change accordingly. Now do another listing. Well, we still don't see XείμLATEXmk. It turns out that's because it's a special version of a more general script called LaTeXmk. The XείμLATEXmk script basically runs LaTeXmk, but gives it extra information to the effect of, when you run, use XǳLATEX instead of regular LaTeX. The LaTeXmk you see in your listing is another directory containing a number of things in it. So issue the commands cd space LaTeXmk ls. And hey, there's the XείμLATEXmk engine I was talking about. Okay, so now we found what we were looking for, but it's in the wrong place. Being in the inactive directory, and even within LaTeXmk within that, it's not available for us for regular use, so we need to move it. To do that, we issue the command mv space XἓLATEXmk.engine space ... This means move XείμLATEXmk.engine to ... within ... means the directory one up from wherever I am, or the directory which includes the one I am in now. So effectively, this amounts to going up 2 levels, or in this case, back up to the engines directory. Let's make sure we did it right. Perform a listing to make sure it's no longer here. Okay, then issue the command cd space ... In other words, change to the directory one above wherever I am, ... then repeat that operation. If you've done it right, the prompt should point to the engines directory again. Ask for another listing, and the XείμLATEXmk.engine should appear there. So far, so good. And we've finished our sojourn into the Dark Ages, so we can close the terminal window. We're now ready to finish configuring TeXShop, so let's launch it one more time. The first thing we need to do is to make sure that we've installed the XείμLATEXmk engine correctly. That's fairly simple. Just click on the engine drop-down box and look. XείμLATEXmk should appear in the menu near the bottom. We're now ready for the final configuration task, which is to update the default engine which TeXShop will invoke. At the moment, as you can see, it's LaTeX. To do that, open the Preferences pane again, then click on the Typesetting tab. Now, in the default command area, located in the top left quadrant, click the command listed below radio button and enter XείμLATEXmk. XείμLATEXmk, just like that, without the engine extension. Click OK to close the Preferences pane. That's basically it, except that nothing will happen until the next time TeXShop is launched. So close it and relaunch. The drop-down box should now be set to XείμLATEXmk.